Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for watching Tarnation TV and Flatout Racing Network. A little simulcasting here on Thursday evening here at the Rolling Thunder Gaming Talladega Challenge, season number 68, race number 10 already. How time flies when you're doing 200 miles an hour. But I'll stop talking and let the professionals do it. My name is Blaine Donlan, joined, of course, by Flatout Racing Network alumni Kyle Matthews and Seth Cole.
Yeah, and as you say, Blaine, it's race number 10. More importantly, Kyle, it's the regular season finale. We have gone 9 races so far. 9 different drivers have gone to victory lane. We could see a 10th here tonight, but one thing we know for certain is that we will have at least 16 drivers when the checkered flag waves that will be traversing on a 5-week journey to try and claim this championship. Quite honestly, outside of when we crown the champion in the overall season finale, this is about the most exciting race that we have, just in the fact that there are so many scenarios to keep track of.
So many scenarios, so many ways to get points, so many potential winners for this race. I mean, yeah, you name it, we have it here in this regular season finale. I am looking to see how this goes.
Now, for somebody who has self-admitted math is not his strongest subject, obviously this is going to be an interesting one for me, trying to, as these drivers traverse their way around this racetrack for 66 laps, figure who's in, who's out, who's still got a shot. I'm able to do that from the luxury of my own office. These drivers here tonight, they'll have to be their own mathematicians with their different scenarios. And oh, by the way, they got to do it at over 190 miles per hour, probably 3 wide most of this race. Not an easy task.
Oh, absolutely not. I don't even know how one could even think about points. I think if it was me out there, I would just be trying to run my own race and let points fall where they may. But a lot of these guys, they know how to do it. They know how to calculate points. They know where they need to be. They know who they need to be running ahead of and by how many positions. So these guys have it figured out, thankfully, for their sake.
Another full field here tonight as well, which means maximum points are up for grabs to be gained and or lost. Going to try to bring you up to speed on what the scenarios are for different drivers coming into this race. There were so many, I actually had to physically write them down on paper. So there are 7 drivers, I believe, that we can confirm that are already locked into the playoffs before we even take the green flag here tonight. 5 of them through victories. Your current points leader, Joe DeSpirito, as well as 3rd through 6th in the points, Danny's Grant Wesley, Mark Paglia, Tim Nofsker, and last week's winner, Ulysses Sandoval. Make that Josh Metallic, if I can get the correct name. I believe he is locked in on points. A big number that we're going to be talking about here tonight is 58 points. That's the most points you can get tonight by winning the race, leading a lap, leading the most laps, and winning the halfway stage. To that end, there are only 20 points separating 7th in the standings to the 16th in the standings cut line. That would be Michael Norman to Bob Seminara. A few drivers in that particular range of points are former winners on the season. Denny Carroll, who is 9th, Rodney Sullins, who is 13th. For Denny, if he finishes in the top 35 here tonight, even if he doesn't get any stage points, he should be safe to advance. Rodney Sullins, all he needs to do is finish in the top 30, because those 2 drivers with wins only have to gauge themselves to 20th in points, not 16th. However, there are a bunch of drivers down below that 6th in the standings cut line that want to move their way in. I counted 10 drivers that could easily here tonight work their way up into the top 20 in points alone. There's also another 10 drivers below the cut line that could win their way up into the top 20 and clinch one of those wild card spots. 2 drivers that we're going to have to really keep our eyes on here tonight. Former winners on the season. Kelly causing the 00. He was not in the field last week. Subsequently, he dropped to 20th in points, right on that cut line. He currently is in through a wild card spot, but if he drops outside of the top 20, he would not advance. So he has to keep his wits about him of the drivers in his area of the point standings. And Donnie Garrett, another former winner of the season, has dropped all the way down to 29th in points. He is 29 points below 20th in the standings. It's not a must-win situation for Donnie Garrett, but he's certainly going to have to try to get himself up to the front, stay at the front, get some stage points, I think, as well. And he's rolling off the grid from the 39th position. All that pretty much says that for potentially 16 spots, there's probably about double that amount of drivers that have a shot here tonight to be able to go playoff racing in the next 5 weeks. And drivers are gritting up here. Again, we talk all the time about the random qualifying draw. Sometimes it plays to your benefit. Sometimes it plays to your detriment. A lot of those drivers that I talked about are peppered all through the field. A couple of drivers whose names you will not see on the scoring pylon here tonight. Grant Wesley and Ulysses Sandoval. Those two have enough of a buffer between themselves and 20th in the standings that their previous victories on the season will lock them into the playoffs, though it will be interesting to see where they are seated once the playoff grids are put together. But it's going to be Pat McCarskey who's going to get the pole position for tonight's regular season finale. He'll share that front row with the 033 of Tim Anderson. Bobby Farrell will be in row number 2 alongside of Mark Paglia. Robert Breedlove shares the third row with Greg Palmer. Brian Schilling and Glenn Harris, their row number 4. Kelly Causey, Billy Ellis are going to complete your top 10. Bernie Mobbs and Mike Wiley making his series debut here tonight, at least for this season. They're row number 6, with row 7 being Bob Seminara and Keith Bynum. Row 8 finds Mike Mangialardi, Brian Lovell, Michael Norman, and Richard Martin back in row 9. Tim Novsker, Dennis McCarthy are going to complete your top 20. Ken Roberts, Jeff Crivello, they're your 11th row. Row 12, Javier Negron and Craig Hagley. Cody Lamas and Rod Weston, they're back in row 13. Row 14, it looks like we got an issue there, and we're going to get a little bit of a regrid here. So Jeremy Jeffries, Robert Spring, they're row 14. Chuck McClure, we're going to talk about Chuck McClure here in just a minute. He'll be back in the 15th row, completing the top 30 with Graham McDonald. Row 16 will be Greg Lovell alongside of Joe DeSpirito, who right now looks like he could wrap up the regular season championship right after they take the green flag. Row 18 will find Doug Kulik and Jeff Goodpaster, also making his first start on the season. Row 19 is going to find John Godfrey alongside of Josh Metallic, and the rest of your field, the last 2 rows, Donnie Garrett, Denny Carroll, RJ Cabana, and Rodney Sullins. With them having this little bit of a reset, Kyle, we got a moment to be able to talk about the fact that Chuck McClure, the defending 2-time series champion, sits 15th in the points. He is only 1 point to the good above the 16th in the standings cut line and has a 0 in the win column. A lot of eyes, I think, going to be driver number 17 here tonight because he needs to advance to be able to have a shot at that three-peat.
Yeah, one of the biggest surprises heading into this season, like you mentioned, he's won the last 2 championships in this series. You'd think he would be up there solidly, already having a spot, in the playoffs locked in, but that is not the case. So yes, the 17, we will definitely be keeping an eye on the race.
And Joe DeSpirito, who comes into this race having scored the highest amount of stage points over the course of the previously run 9 races, 64 points. That's quite a head and shoulders amount over second most accumulated, 41 by Bob Seminara. He is a total of 56 points over Josh Metallic in the overall standings. I mentioned that 58 points, the most you can gain in a single race. So it's looking like for Joe DeSpirito, all he's got to do tonight is finish the race. He's going to lock up that regular season championship, which is huge based off of how the calculations are now with this new playoff system. 5 bonus points go to the regular season champion. There's obviously a difference in the allotted amount of points that are given out based on where you're seated. First ends up getting 1,036, second gets 1,033, and then on down increments of 3, 2, and 1 as you make your way down to 16th. And then, of course, Joe DeSpirito has a victory this season as well, so there's an extra 3 bonus points towards the postseason. So DeSpirito looks like he's going to be starting that 5-race playoff schedule with a pretty good cushion in the number 1 seed.
Yeah, I like that consistency is being rewarded here in this system. That's always good. You see somebody running as well as DeSpirito has this season. Nice to see it's going to pay off for him to start the playoffs. And as you can see, started yet again. I didn't hear who it was, but somebody's having a calibration issues with their wheel right now. So hopefully that gets settled here.
Well, certainly with the gravity of the situation, this regular season finale, you want to make sure that everybody is good to go, able to have a shot at not only potentially advancing into the playoffs, but also having a shot of winning this race here tonight as well. Maybe try extend that streak from 9 races, 9 different winners to 10 different winners during the course of the regular season. Some other drivers we'll be keeping an eye on here tonight that haven't yet been able to find victory lane, but have also been consistent, are going to try and stay above the 16th in the standings cut line. Michael Norman, 7th in points. Greg Lovell currently 8th. Ken Roberts, 10th. Ryan Schilling, 11th. Jeremy Jeffries in 12th. And then Craig Hagley, Chuck McClure, Bob Seminara, 14th through 16th. Those are the drivers right now that, coming into this race, currently hold playoff positions and are looking to keep them by the time the checkered flag waves here tonight.
Looks like the problems, whoever it was facing it with the calibration, looks like that's been settled. So looks like we're going to be coming to the green flag this time.
You know, we talk about the preseason jitters. These drivers usually get a couple of weeks off in between seasons. They then get ready for the first race of the season. We can see the adrenaline rush as they have the anticipation of getting the new season going. I have to feel that same kind of sensation is going on for all 40 of these drivers. Probably not aware of the scenarios of the drivers around them, just laser focused on what they need to do. And we have seen so many times that different varying agendas can sometimes lead to some catastrophic results. They're going to have to keep the fenders on these race cars. What do we say? In order to finish first, you have to first finish. And we've seen some really thrilling races so far here in the first 9 weeks, expecting no less here tonight in the regular season finale. 66 laps before we determine who will be battling this season for the Talladega Challenge Series Championship as Pat McCarskey and Tim Anderson get us green at Talladega. I'd like to say with how much is riding for so many drivers in this race that we might see these guys kind of settle in and not necessarily get all that crazy with double wide and 3-wide racing, but we know these guys a little too well for that.
Yeah, and our pole sitter, Pat McCarskey, you see him on the apron. Don't know if he's having a problem or if this is by design, but you normally don't see the pole sitter fall back like that on the very first lap. I think there's an issue with that 97 car.
Might be.
Or the 197, I should say.
Gonna try and latch on to the back of Denny Carroll there. I'm not
Kreski
certain.
does like to be in the back, I think.
Well, the thing that I'm not quite certain about is I noticed on the initial roll off the grid, the 48 of Cody Lamas was actually slated to roll off. I think it was around mid-pack, the 25th spot. He actually pulled down into one of the pit stalls and let the field go by. If McCarskey didn't want to start up at the front of the field, I'm surprised he didn't do the same. It's going to cost him. I mean, he dropped to the apron, let the field on by, and never was able to get the momentum back to stay in touch with the field. He's losing them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, on the couple of resets we had there, I did notice the 48 every single time moved off to the side, so chose to fall to the back.
Well, Cody, a lot of times Cody will, get out of the server before they go to qualifying and let the game set the lineup, and then he'd get back in, try not to, so he could start at the rear of the field. Just a bit of a strategy he always has. So I guess he wanted to try something a little bit different here tonight. We see him. He's like the second to last car in the back right now, but I'm sure we'll see him before the night is over here. He's one of those drivers that could possibly make his way into the playoffs tonight.
Another driver, also Denny Carroll. We've seen him drop to the back in a number of races and then find him up at the front late. Yeah, you mentioned about Cody Lamas. He's actually the first driver outside the 16th in the standings cut line coming into this evening, -5. Greg Palmer currently -12, 18th in points. 26 points, 28 points back. Richard Martin, another former champion, currently 19th in the point standings. So some more drivers. Just keep adding to the list of the drivers to keep an eye on here tonight. Speaking of Palmer, got himself a bonus point for a lap led as he and fellows Blue Ovals Mark Paglia and Bobby Farrell get that inside line going, and we'll get the 22, it looks like, clear for the lead down the back straightaway.
I just got word from Rod Weston in the 19 there before the race started. He commented in the Tire Nation TV YouTube chat. Big thank you goes out to Sean Turner. He gave him his spot tonight. So Sean was slated to be in the race, but decided to step aside and let Rod get in there in that 19 rig.
Rod's high, wide, and handsome in that third lane. Rolled off from the outside of row 13, and he's already made his way up inside of the top 20. Might be up inside of the top 15 there, as there's some pretty fast machines in that third line, being led by Kelly Causey, a former winner on the season who comes into this race in the critical 20th position in points. Right now, it would be in one of the wild card spots, but wants a little added insurance, and well, you got a heck of a shove right there from Nofsker. You could see that Budweiser Chevrolet get a little squirrely midway down the backstretch. And Keith Bynum up into the wall, and this is not going to be good. Right in the middle of the corner, we've got at least one car up and over. That might have been Jeff Crivello. Javier Negron, Keith Bynum involved. Chuck McClure is going to...
Definitely Crivello, yeah.
I think McClure got through without any damage.
That's
Keith
weird.
Bynum.
This is right in the middle of the field. This could have been a lot bigger than what it was right there. I think we only have about maybe half a dozen cars involved in this thing.
The drivers that I saw involved, I think this was around the 14th, 15th position. So, yeah, up in that top half of the field. A wild ride there for Keith Bynum. They were 3 wide going into turn 3, and I don't know if they ran out of room or if somebody just pushed up.
It's like him and the 8 car got together right
There's
there.
a bit of both, yeah. A little bit of up, a little bit of down, and then away we go.
Yeah, it was hard to tell from the vantage point that we were looking at on my end. I almost wonder if Keith Bynum's eyes were out the windshield watching the 00 and the 088 cleared themselves to the inside. He was following Tim, I believe, and didn't realize Glenn was as far up in that middle line as he was. That eventually led to the contact. And boy, that's a
Josh Metallic just scored a field goal right there to get by that wreck.
He's done that a lot this season, especially late in the race. Josh Metallic, I can count about 3 different times where a wreck happens on the final lap and somehow he's able to make his way through and come out with a top 5, top 10 finish. That's why he's up as high as he is in the point standings. Chuck McClure did get a little piece of the incident. He got into the back of Graham McDonald, but I don't think that he made that much contact. Went into a bit of a half spin, but I think he's going to be okay. Look at how many drivers were back in this vicinity. Our points leader, Joe DeSpirito, had to go to the apron to avoid. Jeremy Jeffries did a great job. Up the middle, 4 wide. Greg Lovell was back behind this. You mentioned about Metallic. Denny Caro was back behind this. I mean, a lot of drivers able to skirt their way through. A lot of former winners on the season as well, who some of them are already locked in.
I just lost the picture in Discord there.
Yep. I'm going to bring that back up. Looks like my game decided to die.
So did mine.
The wreck was too violent, I guess.
Yeah.
Our systems couldn't handle it.
36 car did take quite a ride there, but...
As we get the systems going again here, looks like Jeff Crivello has retired out of the race, as has Keith Bynum.
Drivers, to your cars.
That's a tough break there for a couple of drivers. I don't believe for either of them. Let me just double check real quickly my notes. Yeah, neither one were high enough in the point standings that even with a victory, they'd be able to get above the 20th and states cut line. They were, for Crivello, 37th, Bynum 38th, coming into tonight in points. But that doesn't mean that the two of them didn't want any more than the other drivers in the field to take the checkered flag here tonight, and they're not even going to make it 5 laps into this race. Had a few drivers stay out the first lap of this caution period. Richard Martin, Cody Lamas. They'll turn the lead over to Greg Palmer. Martin getting himself a valuable bonus point there. Mentioned he's 19th in points, 28 points below the 16th in the standings cut line. So lights out in the pace car. We'll rack them up and do it again. It'll be an all Ford front row with Palmer and Paglia. Robert Breedlove, Bobby Farrell, and Brian Schilling going to be the top 5, followed by Tim Anderson, Kelly Causey, Tim Nofsker, Glenn Harris, and Brian Lovell. Time of this yellow, kind of interesting, that wreck taking place, this caution coming out about 5 to 6 laps into this one. We talk about all the time that if a race were to go green from start to finish, the final pit stop usually has to be made somewhere around 5 to 6 laps away from the checkered flag. So, with the caution coming out when it did, these drivers now more than likely should be able to make it the rest of the way on 3 more pit stops. Also, one thing to keep track of here, with a couple of drivers out of the race, if we continue to have a race of attrition and more drivers finish behind the wall, that will continue to increase the chances of both Denny Carroll and Rodney Sullins locking themselves into the playoffs just based off their finish in this race. As the green flag back in the air for Greg Palmer. Pretty even start there for both the inside and the outside lanes.
And Palmer getting a nice push there from the 931 right there. He's going to move up in front of Pagula.
Yeah, we saw those blue ovals work together on the inside line to get Palmer to the lead. Now they're all lined up nose to tail on the outside line, the 22, the 28, and the 92 of Farrell.
Trying to get a third line going here. We saw Dennis McCarthy leading that line on the outside. Well, he was. Now he's got the it's like Ken Roberts right there in front of him.
Ken Roberts coming to this race 10 points to the good over the 16th in the standings cut line. So pretty much for Ken here tonight, he needs a top 15 to ensure that he would be locked into the top 16 to battle for the championship. Joe DeSpirito to his inside there in the 24. You know, with all these scenarios of drivers trying to make their way into the postseason, unfortunately this week, kind of taking a little bit of a back seat, is the bracket challenge. We know that Joe DeSpirito has advanced his way to the finals on the winner's side of the bracket. 2 matchups here tonight that we'll be keeping an eye on the loser's side of the bracket. Michael Norman taking on Tim Nofsker. Mark Paglia taking on Jeremy Jeffries. The winner of Norman Nofsker gets Josh Metallic next week. The winner of Paglia Jeffries gets Greg Lovell next week, as we draw closer to determining who the combatant will be in at least 1, if not 2, of the final races of the season for Joe DeSpirito.
Yeah, I almost forgot about the bracket challenge myself. So there's a lot on the line here tonight. Trying to make the playoffs, trying to advance in the bracket challenge, just to A lot on these drivers' mind.
Yeah, trying to lead the 33rd lap.
Yep, that too. About 8 cars back in that middle line, that black and white shadows on fire. 712 of Bob Seminara mentioned the scenario he's in coming in tonight, even despite the fact that he is second highest to accumulate stage points this season. He's got a couple of midway stage victories under his belt, still the 16th driver in the standings. And that's got to be such a difficult spot to be in because, just one slip up and 1-2 drivers below you in the point standings could find themselves above you and you're outside of the cut line. I almost feel like in that type of a scenario, you can't think about playing defense. You've got to be full on offense the entire race.
I think that's definitely the best way to go about it. Just try to run in that situation. Just run your own race. Don't worry about anybody else. Do what you need to do out there.
And obviously in Super
Tim
Speedway
Knopfler
race,
trying to lead that inside line.
and Knopfler comes into this race 5th in the point standings, already locked into the playoffs with his victory. He cannot fall out of the top 20 in points. 5th in the overall standings would give him a pretty high seeding once the points are reformatted. Gotta wonder too, for a lot of these drivers that I mentioned, that before we even took the green flag, the scenarios looked favorable to already lock them into the postseason, like a Despirito, Metallic, Paglia, Novsker. Obviously, we know in super speedway racing, you cannot win by yourself. You've got to have teammates. You've got to have allies. For those drivers that are already in those lock-in scenarios, how many favors do you think got called in by friends and teammates that are down around that cut line that don't necessarily need to win, but need to have a good finish, saying, hey, please stay glued to my back bumper all night long so that way I can advance as well.
Oh, I'm sure there have been plenty of deal making going on before the race even started. I bet there's going to be some deal making going on during the race here tonight. So yeah, that's definitely going on.
And with deal making comes deal breaking.
Yes, sir.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you could be committed to somebody going into turn 1 and then just totally leave them out to dry by the time you get to the backstretch. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's just.
I'll work with you until I don't want to anymore.
A lot of times,
until it no longer
that white flag waves, then all bets are off.
Like we've talked to Josh Metallic in post-race interviews before. He's like, I don't care if you're my grandma, I'm going to pass you to win this thing. He won't even push his own grandma to the win. Everybody wants to win, doesn't matter. It's a tough one to win too, so if you can get it, definitely take it.
Yeah, drivers tell us that all the time.
Speaking of Josh Metallic, he's leading that outside line right now. He's got the 82, I believe that's the 38 and the 30 all behind him right there, so.
Yeah, not sure that Metallic mathematically can take the regular season championship from Joe Despirito, especially with the fact that we've had a couple of drivers retire out of the race, so the lowest Despirito could finish tonight would be in the 38th position. But for Metallic here this evening, there's a couple things that he would like to do. One, play some defense against Mark Paglia, Tim Knopfler, ensure that he's going to have second in the regular season standings, which will give him some really valuable bonus points in the reseeding of the playoffs. The other thing, he's the highest driver in the point standings right now. He's actually the only driver inside of the top 6 that has a 0 in the win column. He'd like to fix that tonight.
Now he's got Rod Weston right in front of him now leading that outside line. See Bob Seminara leading that inside line right there, and Greg Palmer in the middle, currently leading the race.
The red, white, and blue Michael Waltrip throwback of Jeremy Jeffries in the sucker hole going backwards. Jeremy was 12th in points coming into tonight, only 9 points to the good above that 16th in the standings cut line. Another former champion of the series. And I've been noticing on that inside line a few drivers working their way forward, specifically the 77 of Donnie Garrett, the 41 of Denny Carroll. We saw them kind of riding at the back. Though granted, they didn't have the best of qualifying efforts through the qualifying draw, but it appears that now they feel is the time to move forward. No more riding. And I can't help but think of last season. The scenario for Donnie coming into tonight, he's got a victory, but he's out of the top 20 in points. He's not in a wild card spot. He's 29 points below that 20th standings cut line. How many times, was it 2, maybe 3 times last season that we saw Donnie come in clutch to not only advance into the playoffs, but find himself in the Final Four to compete for the championship in the final 2 races of the season? You got to bet on this guy when the chips are down. He's shown it before. He could do it again tonight.
One of the most impressive things I've seen anybody do in this series, right here, when your back's against the wall. He was in a must-win situation both of those times. He was able to pull through, get the victory, give himself a shot at winning the championship. It's just a very, very difficult thing to accomplish, but he was able to pull it off.
Rodney Sullins to his outside there in the 38. Rodney, a former winner on the season, 13th in points. Again, he is a driver that just has to finish in the top 30 here tonight to advance his way into the postseason. Running much better than that. Scoring had him 14th last time by. He's hovering right around the top 15. Ryan Schilling going to slide up in front of him. Schilling 11th in the point standings. Currently winless this season in that Kyle Busch throwback. I believe he is also 9 points ahead of the cut line. He and Jeremy Jeffries, along with Rodney Sullins, actually came into this race in a 3-way tie for 11th in points. The points are just that close. And you mentioned that 82 of Craig Hagley, who for the last number of laps has been committed to the back bumper of Josh Metallic. Hagley coming into this race, 14th in points. Big opportunity here tonight to either win or point his way into the playoffs. But he currently sits 3 points to the good above the cut line. And just to put it into perspective for everybody, even a 20-point advantage is enough for these drivers in this type of a race with this big of a field. You want a lot more than that for insurance.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a good amount, but they're in it. I mean, it is for the most part, but it's definitely no guarantee. With all the ways you can gain points in this race, with the stage racing at the halfway point, and leading a lap, leading another lap, getting bonus points for that, winning the race. I mean, there's a lot of points to be gained and a lot of points to be lost here tonight.
The battle for the race lead here. Kelly Causey was able to nab the bonus point for the lap led. Tim Knopfsker, Josh Metallic, Craig Hagley, Brian Schilling offering the drafting help to the 00, and that's really going to help them down the back straightaway. 00 is clear, 088 is clear, and now he's going to jump to the bottom, trying to go for the lead.
Oh, boy.
That was a late block. I thought we were about to call a big one into turn 3.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be the first time we've seen that this season either, but that's a nice job right there. I mean, Kelly Causey, Tim Knopfsker, that was a big-time scare, but they did a great job of not getting together.
Now Dennis McCarthy finds himself all by his lonesome in that third lane going backwards as the extreme outside line evaporates into 2 lanes of racing, and a big reason for that is we're sitting 23 laps in. We went back green at the completion of lap 8. We're closing in here when these drivers are going to have to start thinking about pit road, about 5 laps away from that.
Nice move by Knopfsker. Slide right up and get the perfect bump from the 39 of Metallic. Racing like it's the last lap out here.
We're about 10 laps away from the halfway point when they give out those points to the top 10 running order at the end of lap number 33. Gonna have a pit stop before that. Boy, that's gonna put some extra pressure on those pit stops.
And we have seen so many times during the course of this season, races won and lost on pit road. We're gonna have, I think, a majority of drivers come into pit lane over the course of 2 laps. There might be a few drivers that came down pit road at the 1 degree that might be able to go a little bit further, but I'm anticipating at least 2 big packs of race cars coming down together in the course of the next 5 laps here, and we've seen so many times incidents coming onto pit road, even on pit road itself, not warrant a caution, and a lot of drivers having to kind of race from behind as we approach, as you said, Kyle, that point where those stage points are going to be given out, and of course as well head into the second half of the race where you're running out of laps to be able to mount a comeback, get back those spots you lost. Going to make things even more important for these drivers in terms of execution, getting onto pit road and off of pit road. I think we got a couple drivers coming in this time. Seminara, Robert Breedlove, RJ Cabana. Seminara going to pit from what was going to be around the 8th position there. Donnie Garrett's in, Denny Carroll, Glenn Harris back there also. About 7 drivers here with this group. A number of them had stalls right there towards the back of pit road. Garrett, Carroll, and Cabana, who qualified 39th, 40th, and 41st this evening in the draw.
It's about half a dozen cars that came down that time by. That's about the size of, that's about the size of the amount of cars that I'm pitting with.
Same.
I hate to come down here in a huge pack of cars like this.
Yep, safe number. I liked that group. Got some more coming in this time. Greg Palmer, Mark Paglia, Ken Roberts, Rod Weston in this group. Oh, Paglia locked him up right in front of Roberts. Hold the brake.
Well, Paglia's got to be careful here. Don't want to get disqualified from by facing backwards for too long. If he's able to get it straightened out, but man, he's going to lose a lot of track position because of that.
Richard Martin part of this group as well. Mike Wiley, Billy Elliser, Mike Mangialardi. Boy, it's got to feel good if you're Mark Paglia, and the fact that he came into this race pretty much locked into the playoffs, high enough in the point standings with a victory that something like that doesn't completely ruin your chances of battling for the championship this season, as here comes another big pack being led by the race leaders. Okay, this is about maybe 24 drivers squeezing there at the entrance of pit road. John, you might not have made pit road wide enough, but they all made it.
I don't know who's more stressed out, the drivers doing these pit stops or us watching it up here. I mean, this is just...
My money's on us.
Yeah.
Now the question is, did everybody get those cars woed down to pit road speed? A lot tougher to do when you have that many race cars coming onto pit road, different drivers with different pit stalls all up and down pit lane, some having to stop earlier than others.
It's so fantastic to see that, though, a green flag stop where there's 20 guys coming in and they make it work. That is not easy to do. Everybody's got to be comfortable with the chaos.
It's almost like when you watch a flyover at a NASCAR race, the choreograph that goes into that. It's the same deal here with just that many cars all trying to fit into a limited amount of space. And oh yeah, by the way, slowing from about 200 miles per hour down to 55 miles per hour.
Yeah. Trying not to lock up, trying not to get hooked. It's everything. And sure, it's a little bit wider, but only by one lane.
Everybody's going to start getting themselves bunched back up here. Like Tim Knopfler is going to be the race leader once everything cycles around. Had a driver coming off of pit road there. That was the 98 of Mike Wiley. Ooh, Wiley actually going for almost a spin in the grass. Down to the bottom of 1 and 2. He'll hang on to it. I think he might have been hit with a speeding penalty. Had come down to serve it. We're going to have a pretty sizable group here. Maybe about 25 drivers. We may end up having 30 plus if that second group back there can reel this top pack in. Keep an eye on the lap counter there. They just crossed the line to complete lap 29. 4 laps left until the top 10 get those valuable stage points. And look who we got up front here. Nofsker, Metallic, Causey, Jeffries, Despirito, Hagley, right now the top 6, all looking to secure their spots into the postseason.
See Brian Schilling leading this outside line. Rodney Sollins behind him. He's also got Greg Palmer, who's, I believe, has led the most laps so far in this race.
Yes, Greg Palmer has 16 laps led. Yep.
Every point matters. These stage points, we've seen that completely change the landscape of these races here in season 68. Normally around this point of the race, everybody's in ride mode, just kind of settling in until the next round of pit stops. But having those valuable points paid out at the midway portion, these drivers, kind of like Blaine said, race as if it's the last lap, realizing that even just that 1 point for crossing the line in 10th could be a difference maker to being just above or just below the 16th in the standings cut line after tonight. Like Michael Norman is the trailing car of this group, 22nd position. Ryan Lovell is currently by himself. He'll probably get reeled in by this half dozen drivers in the second group, being led by Tim Anderson. Robert Springs also trying to stay latched on to this group. They certainly won't be able to get up there in time for stage points, as Jeremy Jeffries there on the inside. I believe he's actually being bypassed. I don't know if he was trying to make a move and nobody decided to go with him or what, but he's going backwards and he's going well outside of the top 10. So a gamble to pick up a spot or two is going to net him more than likely no stage points.
Yeah, we're on lap 33 right now. End of this lap's when the window's going to open up for those stage points. See how aggressive some of these guys are going to be to try to get a point or two.
I think right now, Greg Lovell holds the final 10th position. They're double wide behind him there with Cody Lamas, Brian Schilling side by side. See if Lovell can hang on. Will they make moves up at the front here? Here comes Despirito. He's going to look to the outside. Nobody's going to go with him. Denny Carroll's going to look low a little further back. Ooh, some contact.
Oh, Donnie Garrett.
Donnie Garrett up the track into Cody Lamas. I think that's going to bring out a caution. No, we're still green.
Yowza.
That is a terrible break there for terrible break right there for Cody Lamas.
Now the caution's out.
I wonder if
he was scored in the 10th position. A lot of damage to Cody's car too. Like I said, that's a tough break right there. Up there in a position where he needed to be. Did get a stage, but at what cost?
Yeah, I think a couple of drivers might have gotten into it over in turn 1 after Cody's spin. Novsker crossed the line with the stage victory. He'll get 10 points with Metallic, Causey, Hagley, Breedlove, the top 5. Then it was Seminara, Carroll, Despirito, Garrett, and Lamas who crossed the line for the top 10. That'll get the stage points here tonight, but Cody Lamas's car right now does not look like one that actually got stage points in this race. The back end of that race car all crunched in. And it was right around that 8th, 9th, 10th position in the running order where this was getting crazy. Drivers trying to, I don't know, play offense or defense maybe to preserve their spot there in this midway stage.
Something happened to Donnie Garrett. We saw him get way out of shape right there in front of Cody.
Did he get a bump from the 880 maybe? Yeah, he got bumped in the tri-oval.
Right there.
There's Garrett's trying to gather it back up. You saw Cody move up high to give him as much room as possible. The contact made between those two sends him up into Greg Lovell.
Chuck said he had a good
that
view.
Just directs Cody's car down hard into the inside wall. And I believe the caution came out as Cody's car was spinning up towards the track going into turn 1. Otherwise, I think that the yellow would not have waved.
I wonder if the admins threw that.
They might have.
Just got word from Rodney that Chuck had a good view of this, so we're riding along with Chuck right now. An instant replay here at the wreck.
Yeah, Chuck was right behind Cody when that happened.
Yeah.
Nice job at getting by.
Just doing a quick check of when that caution flew. Yeah, Cody had actually come back up the racetrack. And there was a group of oncoming cars, including Billy Elliser, Jeffrey Goodpaster, Mike Mangialardi, and Graham McDonald. So that's what actually brought the yellow flag out. As the 48 was up in the racing lane with oncoming traffic.
Oh, I see, yeah. Yeah, so if Cody would have kept it down on the apron, there would have been no yellow.
So just kind of looking through the drivers that got stage points there, I'm not certain that this midway payout of points necessarily changes really anyone's scenario as of right now. It's going to make things, I think, a little closer, but I think that Seminara still is going to be in the top 16. I'm not certain if that 1 point for Cody has him currently up in the top 16 in the standings. Chuck McClure, who we were on board with, he crossed the line in 11th, so he did not get any stage points, and he was only 2 points ahead of Seminara coming into tonight. So that might be an interesting one to kind of keep track of for the remainder of this race. I don't know if that necessarily dropped Chuck now down onto the bubble spot of 16th, if he's maybe below the cut line. Points are just too close to tell. And I'll say it now, we'll probably say it after we go off the air here as well. We will obviously try and give you the best possible scenario we can before the close of this broadcast of who is in, who is out, but we also have to take into account that the admins during the course of this week will have to look back, see if any post-race penalties have to be handed out or anything. I say it all the time. Nothing is official until the green flag flies the next week. So we'll do our best to give you what we think the playoffs look like based off of the information given to us when the points are calculated. But tune in next week for sure to make absolutely certain that your favorite driver is indeed going to be battling for the championship here in season 68.
You said Seminara was the cutoff driver?
Correct.
Heading into tonight, and how many points did he get?
I think he got 5 or 6.
And then McClure, you said, was behind him, or just in front
McClure
of him?
didn't get any. He crossed the line 11th.
Jeffrey Goodpaster back on track tonight in that 18 Monster Energy car. That's cool. Oh, sorry, Interstate Batteries.
It's another Kyle Busch throwback.
Yeah, it's nice to see
Always
both
like-
Goodpaster and Mike Wiley out here on the racetrack tonight. They participate in the Tuesday night iRacing series that RTG has here on a weekly basis now, that actually runs for points, runs for a championship this season, and making their way over to the Enter 2003 side. Got the privilege of meeting Jeff Goodpaster last year at the Indianapolis 500.
Oh, cool. So he does exist. He's a real person.
He is a real person, unless I was still dreaming at 5 o'clock that morning when we arrived at the track.
That's cool, though, meeting these guys in real life. We talk about that a little bit there every week, really. But you know all these people, but we've actually never met in real life, you know. The internet does glorious things. And then you get the chance to meet some of these people. It's kind of cool, especially at a racetrack. That makes sense. Wouldn't have it any other way, right?
Absolutely.
Racetracks and amusement parks work wonder for that kind of thing.
Right.
Tom,
they're
Jeremy
good
Jeffrey
venues.
stay out that extra lap there, get a bonus point. Remember, he got shuffled out of the top 10, so I think he figured, all right, since I wasn't able to get any points at the halfway stage, I'll get myself a bonus point now for leading the lap.
I feel like the way they're doing the stage racing, with it being right in the middle of right at the halfway point, I feel like it makes it feel like there's two races in one here. It's like the first one complete. Here we got the stage points out of the way. Now it's time to go for the trophy.
Probably messes up fuel strategy too, right? Because before the halfway stages, you'd be able to figure out, all right, I can go this far on fuel, and you know, I can be this many laps short and be able to take on either a full can or a half can at the end of the race. Now you got to account for, as you say, Kyle, almost preparing for two different races. You got to plan the fuel strategy accordingly for lap 33, and then you got to plan a fuel strategy to get to lap 66. Looks like the 38 drivers that are still in this race, all still going to be on the lead lap. Didn't see any need for lucky dogs to go around under this caution, despite having some issues for some drivers during that first cycle of green flag pit stops. Only two drivers out of the race after our first caution, Keith Bynum and Jeff Crivello. And we now head into the second half of this season's regular season finale. Going to be 28 laps still to determine tonight's race winner, and those that will battle for the championship is Tim Nofsker will get us back under the green flag. Oh, we got one around, we got several around. I saw a lot of anticipation in that second and third row, and it accordioned all the way back through the field.
First car I saw go around was the 033 of Tim Anderson. Not sure if that's where it started or not, but
He was the first one to go around. But I think that when we look back, I think the second and third cars on the inside line, I think it was Palmer and Seminara, was actually where the stack up actually began. And it just accordioned all the way back to eventually Mobbs getting into Anderson and a bunch of drivers sliding in. Not sure if the 712 missed a shift or started in the wrong gear. According to our telemetry, which isn't always accurate, but it looks like Seminara started in second gear. Palmer started in first. Seminara also got up right to the back bumper of the 82 when they got going, so it's just a lot of missed timing there.
it's kind of amazing the different strategies you have on a restart in terms of what gear you choose. I usually restart in second gear, but others restart in first.
A lot of times, too, it depends on the setup. You're able to have enough RPMs before you have to upshift to second gear, especially if you're on the first 2 rows at a super speedway. First gear to get that launch is the best thing to do. I'm kind of like you, though. If I'm back in the 3rd row or further, I go with second gear just so that way you don't run into this type of a scenario. Driver's trying to time exactly when that green flag is going to come out, and when the stack up happens, I mean, everybody's pedal to the floor. You're not going to get the information back to the 12th, 13th, 14th row in time before the contact we see here is made. See some drivers pitting. Not surprised, because this caution coming out is at a very interesting time. Most everybody that would pit right now, I believe that on their final pit stop, they'd be able to take just a half a can of fuel. Drivers that stayed out, if they save enough, maybe they can do the same, but potentially they'd have to take on a can of fuel on the final pit stop.
Noticed a couple of drivers in the top 16 in points come down pit road. I saw Michael Norman. I saw Bob Seminara.
Points leader Joe DeSpirito, I think, was amongst those drivers as well. Donnie Garrett, Mark Paglia, Jeremy Jeffries as well, Richard Martin. Giving up track position for a little extra in the fuel tank. And in return, putting themselves back in the eye of the storm. Don't think we're done with cautions here tonight.
Strategy could also pay off big time here. You're late in the going.
What was it we saw last week? I think Denny Carroll ran out of fuel up in turn 1 on the final lap. Randy Wall ran out of fuel out of turn 4 on the final lap, and Ulysses sputtered across the line when he picked up the victory. So we could have another nail biter on fuel here this evening.
Sounds like I missed a good finish last week.
You and me both.
Yeah, I heard about that too.
There's going to be a little shuffle in the booth next week as well.
Yeah.
You're going to have Rod Weston, Jack Mitchell joining Blaine for the first playoff race of the season next week. Kyle and I are going to be in parts unknown, I guess we'll say. No, we're taking a nice little vacation to amusement parks across Indiana and Ohio. Looking forward to that one, and definitely going to be tuning in to see the end result of that first playoff race, because I think there's going to be a lot of notes taken when we get back into the booth in a couple weeks' time.
Yeah, hopefully we get a chance to at least see the finish of that thing. I think, we'll be at Six Flags Great America that night. That park closes at 10.
Nice.
It's going to be close.
I know they have a no cell phones policy on coasters, but do you think if we tell them it's really important that we have to see the finish of the race, they'll let us?
It's my experience as a former ride operator at an amusement park. No, that will not fly, unfortunately.
Had some more gamesmanship there coming to the 1 to green. Brian Schilling, Cody Lamas, about maybe 8 drivers coming to pit road at this 1 to green. That little bit of extra fuel. I don't think any of these drivers can make it the rest of the way. But then again, with Brian Schilling, whenever it's Brian Schilling or Grant Wesley, I leave nothing to chance. Some of the best fuel savers when it comes to super speedway racing race here on Thursday nights in this series, and somehow they are able to make it work.
I'd love to know the secret on how to save fuel at a super speedway. I mean, Brian
too.
Schilling and Grant Wesley, they have it down packed.
A couple of drivers, these last few cautions have benefited. Cody Lamas, it looks like the team did a pretty good job repairing the back end of that race car. Looked like he was up to speed with the pack a couple of restarts ago. And Mark Paglia, who we saw have that issue locking him up, spinning on pit road, managed to stay on the lead lap before he was saved by a caution. So he'll be back up here in this pack and trying to work his way back forward as well. Gotta wonder, too, if there's like some bragging rights on the line for the 9 previous winners on the season to go into the playoffs saying, hey, everybody had one win. I was the only one to do it twice. I believe that there's going to be one car missing from the field. Looks like Mike Mangialardi's been dealing with some connection problems, so that bright orange Sunny D Dark Horse Mustang is currently not in the server.
Yeah, I was just informed that by from Michael down there. So green flag back in the air.
Got bright orange up here at the front of the field, that Amp Energy Chevrolet, and there's Mangialardi coming off pit road. Going to rejoin the race. I think he'll be a couple of laps down. I'm assuming we'll probably end up seeing him get scored at least a 1 lap down, if not on the lead lap. Let's usually take that into consideration with connection problems. Usually get drivers all but one of their laps back, and then a lot of drivers usually are able to find a caution to get them the free pass and get back into the hunt. So we went back green, completion of lap 42. About lap 62 should be the furthest that the drivers that came to pit road at the 1 to green would be able to go. That puts us just around our point of no return. So again, we're in the scenario of some drivers going to probably on the final pit stop, again, provided this all stays green, having to take on a can of fuel to get to the end. And then a bunch of drivers being able to come down, spend only the amount of time to put a half can of fuel into their race cars. And those precious seconds, believe it or not, they translate into a chunk of track position. Denny Carroll with a nice move there. Across the nose of Craig Hagley, gonna go for the 4th position on Robert Breedlove. Top 3 currently single file and clear out in front. Nofsker, Causey, Metallic. Nofsker in with his victory, Metallic currently in on points, and right now Causey, who was the 20th driver in points with a victory, a wild card spot, built in a little bit more of a cushion for himself to advance into the postseason.
Looks like that middle line's where you want to be right now. Denny Carroll leading that inside line, but losing some ground at the moment.
Javier Negron, he is now the 6th car in line. That brisk Toyota Camry. Remember I mentioned that there were about 10 drivers below 20th in the standings that with a victory potentially could garner enough points to jump up into the top 20. Javier was one of those drivers. He was the long shot driver, as a matter of fact. 30th in the point standings coming into tonight. A total of 31 points below that cut line, but needs to win to get into a wild card spot.
Well, his teammate went to victory lane last week, so trying to make it 2 in a row here for Team Wrecking Ball, and Negron having a good run so far. And
about the top 6 all clear on that outside line. Technically the middle line, but with only double wide racing, they're the outside line. Then double wide, several rows deep. Nobody venturing up to that 3rd line to make anything happen right now, which says to me these drivers, they're not as focused on racing right now as they are keeping an eye on their fuel. I believe they're going to catch that 29 car of Mike Mangialardi. He'll move all the way up to the outside line, let the field on by. He's only carrying about 182 miles per hour by himself. The field carrying upwards of 200 miles per hour into the corner.
car I see that's still in the lead packer right here appears to be up to speed. Driver that was involved in a caution here a few laps ago, Cody Lamas. It's like the damage didn't affect him too badly. He's still in this lead pack.
I've noticed a couple of drivers that have been involved in incidents tonight still up to speed. A couple of drivers that were involved in that first caution earlier tonight still up in this lead group. Despite the fact that we've ended up having 3 cautions, we've still got 38 drivers running, 37 of them right now on the lead lap, only 2 drivers out of the race. So there's still a lot of points, as we mentioned, on the table. So a lot of cars to try and traverse your way through if you're trying to race your way up into the top 16.
It's Ken Roberts making a move. He's not going to lead that inside line. Gets in front of Denny Girl.
I think back to last night when we covered the Aero 88 race. 6 races left to go in their season, and they were at Progressive Super Speedway. You had a scenario where in the lead pack, there were 3 drivers in the top 5 in the point standings. There were 3 drivers that were on a part-time schedule just trophy hunting, and there was that whole argument of just how aggressive are you, both offensively and defensively, if you're one of those drivers that has to big picture race. Well, you look at Ken Roberts, you can make a case for Jeremy Jeffries, Brian Schilling. These are drivers that if they make a mistake here tonight could easily drop out of their top 16 positions. So they got a big picture race here tonight. As much as they want to win this race, there may be a scenario where you have to be satisfied crossing the line at least just with a solid top 5, even if you're in the hunt for the checkered flag. Because if you make an errant block, get spun around the final lap, guess what? You're not getting those points back.
Just got a request from Michael Norman he wants to know what his scenario is.
For Michael, I'd have to do a little math here, so give me 1 second. So for Michael to advance, he has to be in the top 25. About 10 laps away from when that money stop's going to take place. We're about halfway through a fuel run. And I'd be really surprised if we saw drivers come to pit road within the next 4 laps or so, with 10 to go, to take on that can of fuel right then and there. But that is an option that drivers could do. You and I talked, Kyle, about during that first round of green flag pit stop, that pack of about 7 that came down pit road, a comfortable number, a lot of space to be able to maneuver, and enough drivers when you leave pit road to produce enough speed to stay on the lead lap. I almost wonder if you're a driver that knows for absolute certain you cannot risk putting only half a can of fuel in your race car, that you are going to have to take a full can. Maybe you pit when that window is open with just a select few of you, so that way you know for certain you're going to be able to safely maneuver your way onto pit road instead of coming to pit lane with 24 other drivers.
I'll be surprised if that doesn't happen. There, as you mentioned, it's a very safe option. You know, less amount of cars you come down pit road with, the less chance of something happening. Not saying that it can't with the small group of cars, but your odds are way better in that scenario.
Saw Tim Knopfsker move from the middle to the inside line. He, Causey, and Metallic were lined up. Now Causey has been shifted to the lead car in that outside line. Knopfsker and Metallic have moved to the bottom. Normally see drivers do that when they're a few laps away from impending green flag pit stops. So keep an eye on this Amp Energy Chevrolet and see if maybe within these next 2 to 3 laps he puts the hand out the window and makes the dive onto pit road. We know for certain he's getting the worst fuel mileage, creating the draft for everybody else. And here we go. We're hearing Metallic, Sullins, Palmer all pitting this lap. I would assume Nofsker, the leader, is going to be another of those.
Looks like we talked them right into it here. See Metallic coming down, Nofsker, Sullins, Palmer, and others.
It's a good group. Good number of cars, all going to make it on safely. I like this call. Chuck McClure was in that group, defending two-time series champion in the past two seasons.
About a dozen or so cars coming down this time.
And this is the money stop, folks. They're all coming down, and I believe coming down this early, they're taking on a can and a half of fuel. Palmer going to take some tires, it looked like there, along with Mark Paglia. Nofsker let him in. He'll lead them off of pit road. Now those guys all got to get themselves organized, as we got more on pit road this time by. Rod Weston, Robert Breedlove, Ozzy, Negron, Lamas, Norman, Hewlick, McCarthy. Martin's in this group as well. About the same number of cars in this pack that were in that first pack. So now Brian Schilling, who I believe was one of the drivers that came to pit road at the 1 to green under the last yellow. He's the leader. Seminara, Despirito, Jeremy Jeffries. How much further are they going to go before they make their final pit stop? If the calculations are right, they shouldn't have to pit for another 6 laps.
These guys are hoping for a caution right here, I would imagine. Not sure how many drivers have fallen a lap down due to pitting right now, but
Certainly, I don't believe any. Maybe Billy Elliser, who's on pit road by his lonesome. I think he might get bypassed by the leaders. Oh, we got one up into the wall through the trial.
Rodney Sullins.
Sullins. Oh, he's going to get Rod Weston and Robert Spring. That's going to bring out the yellow, and that's going to really change things up in terms of the fuel strategy. Boy, what in the world happened there? Rodney took a big hit into the outside wall, bounced back down into the passenger side door of the 19, caught the front of the 74, and then went up into the wall again. There's a lot of damage. The entire right side of that Chevrolet is pancaked.
He got squirrely in the middle of the turn, like... I don't know, it was weird. Maybe not, maybe I'm seeing things.
We got a bump.
Yeah, you got help.
Oh, he got help, but I can't tell
from the...
bumper
the
grab
car
off
behind
the
him, or was
back of the 28? Oh, he got into the back of the 28 a little bit. That slowed him up.
Yeah.
And then got a combination bump from behind by RJ Cabana.
Yep. It's funny too, for a track that's so massive with so much space, how those 3 cars are isolated and somehow they found each other.
I remember the situation for Rodney tonight. He needed to finish in the top 30 to ensure that he was going to be in the top 16, not have to rely on a wild card spot. I'll have to do some calculations as to how much of a cushion he had. Over 20th place, got that victory, but he would still be wild card eligible should he need to fall back on it.
That's a hard hit he took right there from the 74 of Robert Spring, too.
Couple of hard hits.
There's not more damage to both of those cars.
Just double checking here. Rodney came into this race 45 points to the good over 20th. So I believe to make sure that he advanced through a wild card spot inside the top 20, he would have to finish 35th or better. So It really all depends on the damage of that race car. The problem for him is there are going to more than likely be, I think, 37 cars on the lead lap again here. So he would be below that criteria when they take the green, but we will get a restart. And he could potentially pick up some spots here late in this one to still find himself locked into the playoffs, albeit needing to fall maybe back on the wild card spot, but then again, too, we've seen some drivers, I think back to, I think it was last week, Cody Lamas had a lot of damage. I think he was a little off the pace. We had that massive wreck through the tri-oval coming back to the start-finish line, and Cody was able to snake his way through for 18th. I think he was running at the time outside the top 30, so cannot take anything for granted when it comes to super speedway racing.
It's always we forget to mention the donations, but yeah, anonymous donations for the whole entire season, number 68 here. So thank you very much for supporting the broadcasting.
And because of that anonymous donor, I mean, we have been treated to exciting race after exciting race. We say it all the time. No two races are ever alike. That's why you got to tune in every single week, because the scenarios constantly change. Not just race to race, but lap to lap. And the parity, I think, proves that with 9 races, 9 different winners that have gone to victory lane so far. But Kyle, you mentioned about that group of Schilling, DeSpirito, Seminara wanting to see a caution. I'm not so certain about that now, because most everybody that pit were able to stay on the lead lap. When those drivers came to pit road, all those that had already pit were able to go around. They stayed out. The Brian Schilling and company, instead of having the benefit of good starting track position for this restart, they're going to be back around 20th on back, I think. Schilling crossed the line 19th that last time by. DeSpirito 22nd or 23rd. 22nd for Seminara, 21st for Jeffries. So they're back in quite a bit of traffic there.
Surprised to see that nobody lost a lap to a green flag pit stop. So no, I guess it didn't help them out, but it would.
And this is interesting. I think, did the 38 pit under that caution, or is he taking a wave around?
Looked like a wave around.
Yeah, I mean, that right side was pretty well pancaked. Okay, no, actually, it looks like he did actually pit under yellow, but there still is some damage on that car. He's actually coming back down pit road here. So I'm not exactly 100% certain what the scenario is there. I thought if you were taking a wave around, you can't pit unless he is actually taking a lucky dog.
I was going to ask that. If he's waving around, he can't pit, but just enough time on pit road to bash out the dents and throw some more gas in, it looks like. Maybe a little bit. We wouldn't need gas, though.
So that'll add an extra lap of pacing here, which I believe we should see the lights out in the pace car this time by, and that would set us up with 5 laps to go when the green flag eventually comes back out. One thing I've noted this season is we've had some exciting last laps, a lot of wrecks, but for the most part, these drivers have done a great job of keeping it clean up until the white flag waving. I think we've only had 1-2 races that have ended under caution this season. Most of them have actually ended under green because they've been able to get back to the white flag before all heck breaks loose. Well, Tim Nofsker has been a lap-leading machine here tonight. He's looking to enter into the playoffs as the only multi-time winner here during the course of Season 68's regular season. A couple of drivers behind him, though, all looking for their first wins on the season. Ken Roberts looking to secure his playoff spot. Josh Metallic, who's already locked in, but looking for his first win of the season. Former champion Richard Martin, we've seen him pull off some miracles the last couple of seasons. Doug Hewlick's now up here in the 5th position. Michael Norman, who we saw just be a splitter short of getting a victory earlier on this season to Grant Wesley, he's 6th. Dennis McCarthy. Kelly Causey's been up front all night long. How about Cody Lamas? We saw that car pound the inside wall, rear end first after sliding across the start-finish line. He's going to be 9th with Javier Negron in 10th. Just take a good gander back there through the top 15, through the top 20. Some of those drivers might be up front before this race is over as well. Don't count them out.
We've seen anything can happen in super speedway racing, especially in this series. So don't pencil in your winner yet. Don't pencil in your chase contenders in yet. We have 5 laps to go here, and this is going to get exciting.
I believe we've got a couple of laps buffer before we would hit where the race would end under caution. Hopefully we don't have that scenario at all here, as Tim Nofsker will bring us down to the start-finish line. Green flag back in the air. Good anticipation by Metallic, that second car on the inside line. Nice timing on that bump. Let's see if they can get the 088 clear for the lead by the time they exit off of turn number 2.
And Nofsker does indeed move to the outside, gets in front of Ken Roberts, opening the door for Metallic on the bottom. Kelly Causey going to go to the outside with no help for the time being.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of drivers testing the waters up there 3 wide now. Pay window is opening and opening quick. Causey will find some help up there in the form of Hagley, Javier Negron. Trying to recruit some more up there to make some forward progress, as top 2 going to find themselves clear. Side-by-side battle going to be Richard Martin, Josh Metallic for the 3rd spot. Three wide back around 8th place. Causey up top. Whoa, look at this. Some slicing and dicing here as Martin, Roberts, Nofsker all move to the bottom. Now Michael Norman, the leader of that middle line, and a big surge for that inside line through 3 and 4.
Not a lot of help in that middle line. He's got Michael Norman's got Cody Lamas right behind him. Robert Breedlove is up there, but that's really about it. It's like the inside's where you want to be.
Yeah.
See Chuck McClure came into this race on a razor's edge of advancing to the playoffs, defending his 2 previous seasons championships. He's trying to crack into the top 10. That was a big save just back there for Donnie Garrett. They were almost 4 wide trying to avoid him as he was gathering up through the center of 1 and 2, but they're all still up to speed, pointed in the right direction.
Metallic now to the outside.
What a run he got, my goodness.
Nofsker saw that, moves up a block.
Now we're going to go 3.
Here comes Kelly Causey on the outside.
And he's got a good push from Craig Hagley. Coming at 2 to
West
go.
turn.
There's a
around
wreck.
they go. No yellow.
We're racing back. Even if the caution came out, most of the leaders across the line, but to your point, Blaine, yep, green flag remains out. Javier was the only one that spun down below that yellow line, so we stay green. Tough break there for Negron, but look at this. Causey now gets himself alongside of
Comes Chuck
Nofsker.
McClure, going to make it 3 wide.
Get to the right rear of Hagley. He's got help from Mark Paglia up there. Just a tri-oval to go. Can they make it through? Receive the white flag here for the final lap of the regular season.
They're going to do it. Nofsker, the leader of the white flag.
3 wide, 3rd place on back. Here comes McClure.
Oh, man.
Real squirrely in that top line. Top 3 got single file and cleared out. Here's Metallic looking. No help.
Roberts looking to the bottom. Nope.
We'll leave Josh hanging.
Now, if Roberts can get himself cleared, does he jump to the outside of Knopfsker coming off of turn 4? If he makes the move, does Richard Martin go with him? Off of 4. Martin taking a look. Roberts going to jump up there. He got snookered by Martin.
Here comes Roberts at the line. Knopfsker's going to get him.
It's going to be Tim Knopfsker going into the playoffs.
Wow.
The only multi-time winner on the season.
That wad of cars coming across the line.
The season finale. And they were 3 wide, almost 4 wide, and a couple portions of the track coming to the checkered flag.
What an awesome finish. 3 wide, multiple rows deep, all coming across through the checkers.
They all kept it clean, too. Love seeing that.
A bookend
Yeah,
regular season for Tim Knopfsker. He won the first race of the season, and now he'll cap off the regular season with another trip to victory lane.
I'm checking out the intervals there at the stripe to take checkered. The first 26 cars were all within a second of the leader.
And a lot of those drivers there just secured themselves a spot into the playoffs on points. Ken Roberts, that second place run. Michael Norman in 4th. Chuck McClure in 6th. Kelly Causey in 8th. Brian Schilling in 10th. All those drivers, those performances are going to have them playoff racing starting next week. Knopfsker was already in with his victory prior to getting the second checkered flag. Metallic was already in with a victory, as was Mark Paglia. And now we wait for the dust to settle and the points to get calculated to find out exactly who got in, who did not. I mean, I'm looking at some drivers down there. Bob Seminara crossing the line in 23rd. Cody Lamas in 27th. Martin with the top 5 run. Did he do enough to leapfrog both of those guys to get into the top 16? I don't know. Things are going to be really interesting. Greg Palmer there in 11th as well.
It's an impressive looking burnout there for Tim Knopfsker. Michael, how nervous were you on that restart?
When I got put 3 wide, I was like, crap, this is it. I'm done.
You only had to finish top 25.
Yeah, but when I went 3 wide, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm done. This is it right here. And then they almost wrecked, which opened up the bottom lane. And as they were going 3 wide, I'm like, well, time to hit the bottom lane. And next thing I know, I'm in 4th place crossing the line. But yeah, I'm excited now, especially if that's enough to get me into the playoffs. But
just trying to eyeball it here. Looks like Jeremy Jeffries, who finished in 15th. I think he did enough to get in. Denny Carroll actually finished out of the race. I actually had missed that. He finished 38th.
How come it's not showing a name? It's not showing a name for 39th right there. At least
that's Keith Bynum. That was after we had the game crash.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But Denny ended up finishing 38th. Now he needed to finish top 35 to stay in the top 16. He should have had enough of a buffer, I think, that this 38th place finish with his victory would get him at least into the wild card spot. He might have still remained in the top 16, though, with the fact that a few drivers ended up finishing quite a ways down the running order, including Seminara, Lamas, Sullins. I'm not certain Donnie Garrett. I don't think all 9 of our previous winners this season are going to be in the playoffs. Donnie finishing 33rd here this evening, and he was 29 points below 20th. Even with his victory, I'm not sure he was able to get above the cut line for a wild card spot. Again, that's all eyeballing it, trying to do math in my head. We'll wait for the official, unofficial, I guess we'll say, calculations to come in before we let you know who potentially is going to be battling for a championship starting next week. Again, I say unofficial since obviously some things could change between now and next week, depending on post-race administration review. But let's see if we could dial up our top 3 finishers on the evening after a wild finish in this regular season finale. Let's start first with a former champion. Brings it home solidly on the podium tonight. Let's get a hold of Richard Martin. Hey, D-Mars, the guys up here in the booth, you got a copy?
I do. It's been a while.
Yeah, wild finish here tonight. We kind of weighed all the different scenarios coming into this evening. Let's talk about the scenario you were in coming into tonight. 19th in the point standings. I think the calculations had you 28 points below the cut line. A podium finish here tonight. Did you know what your scenario was, what your goal was, and were you able to meet it this evening with the solid podium?
Well, I kind of knew I had to get at least a top 10 or 8th or something like that. So I was really lucky. I drove through a couple of wrecks towards the beginning and the middle of the race. And I took a half a can of fuel in that last stop. So that kind of, and the caution came out, which put me in position to be where I was at the end.
We've seen a lot of different drivers, a lot of former champions like yourself, in some interesting scenarios during the course of the season. Did tonight being outside of the top 16 make things a little bit easier for you, kind of narrow down the goals, or did it make things a little bit more confusing with all the other drivers just inside, just outside the top 16 with their scenarios as well?
It made it more confusing and more difficult because it seemed like every week I was just going up and up and up. So tonight I actually stayed out for one of the early cautions and got a point for leading. And so that's going to help a lot. And then, with the 3rd place finish, that's really going to help. So I'm not exactly sure where I am, but I should be in that top 16, I think.
Yeah, we'll keep our fingers crossed for you to see if you do advance into the playoffs here this season. With that being said, let's entertain the scenario that you are going to be a part of the chase. What can this finish here tonight and what you were able to do in the closing stage of this race do in terms of momentum going forward in these 5 races? Because it's a different system now where you have no rounds. It's just whoever is the most consistent over 5 weeks.
Well, it's huge, actually. I'm just trying to get those top 5s, top 10s, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's huge that tonight was just huge because really I haven't had much luck in the last, 4, 5, 6 races, to be honest with you. I was kind of going backwards.
Well, Richard, a great run for you here tonight. Hopefully it was enough for you to be able to be a part of the festivities this postseason, able to keep the fenders clean and have a shot at this victory here tonight as well. Congratulations on a job well done. We'll now give you the opportunity for some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Well, thank you guys for broadcasting as usual. Thanks to Josh for doing his thing on Thursday night. Thanks to Tim, Rodney, and all the other admins. And it was a great race for a change. Like I said, I drove through a couple wrecks and ended up 3rd. So I'm very happy with that. Thank you.
Well, a great race indeed, and a great finish here tonight for driver 43. D-Mark, congratulations on the performance tonight, and we look forward to seeing what the point scenario looks like. Maybe we'll be seeing you next week as one of the playoff contenders for this championship.
All right, thank you, guys. I appreciate you. Richard
Martin, 3rd place here this evening in that Richard Petty throwback Dodge. This will mark his first top 5, only his 3rd top 10. His best finish of the season, his best finish prior was the season opener where he finished in 7th. So we will certainly wait to see if he was able to point his way up into the top 16. The next 2 drivers we're going to talk to, we know indeed will go playoff racing. A 2nd place here tonight will point this man into the playoffs. Let's dial up Ken Roberts. Hey, Ken, it's the guys up here in the broadcast booth. You got a copy?
10-4.
You came into this race in a pretty good scenario. I think our calculations had you only 10 points above the cut line, but the points were super close. There were a lot of drivers around your area of the standings. Coming down to the final laps of this race, we saw you make some moves, eventually get up to 2nd. Looked like maybe you shaded up a little through the tri-oval to take the win, but how much big picture racing took place during that final run to the checkered flag?
Yeah, it's definitely big picture racing. I just wanted to get in the playoffs, and I wasn't sure what 43 would do. I doubt he was going to go with me, but I thought, well, out of the tri-oval, I won't lose that many spots. So I gave it a try out of the tri-oval, but yeah, I was good. I was good finishing in the top 5. Really, it was the goal tonight, was just, getting the top 10 and, just stay in the points and see what we can do in the playoffs.
Yeah, I remember talking to you at the beginning of the season when we had the Super Speedway All-Star race. You went to victory lane there, asked how that would transfer over to momentum coming into this season. You were in a hornet's nest tonight in terms of points. We calculated 7th through 16th in points, only separated by 20 measly points, and you were right in the center of that. How aware were you of the situation? How much did you kind of put it out of your mind and just kind of focus at the job at hand in tonight's regular season finale?
Yeah, that's way too much math for this Buckeye boy. I just tried to get up his front as much as I could, stay in the front as much as I could, and let the points settle themselves.
So with locking yourself into the playoffs through your points positioning, 5 races still to go as we enter into the postseason here to run for the championship. Different type of scenario now than we've had in seasons past. There are no elimination rounds now. 16 drivers, at least we know, will be battling during the course of 5 races. Most points at the end of those 5 races ends up winning the championship. Kind of looking back on this regular season and this run here tonight, what does that do for you in terms of momentum going forward into the playoffs?
It doesn't really change too much for me, I don't think. I mean, you just try to go in and do the best you can. I mean, it's very competitive. There's a lot of heavy hitters in this room. So you just go out and do the best you can. And, you kind of let the chips fall where they may. And, the playoffs is just more of just a reset, kind of get a better idea where you're at. And, if you can have, maybe the first 2 races, get some good solid finishes, you might put yourself in a spot to win it all.
Well, it looks like based off of the unofficial calculations, your runner-up finish here tonight is going to garner you an extra 3 positions in point. You'll finish out the regular season 7th, which will give you some good bonus points once the seeding takes place with the recalculations, the resetting of the format going into next week. So congratulations on the job well done here tonight. Solid finish to cap off the regular season. And before we let you go, Ken, floor is yours for thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Well, I'd like to thank you guys doing the broadcast. I can't wait to go back and watch this one. I was all over the place tonight, but thank the guys over here at RTG, Josh, Tim, Rodney, the admins. They put on a heck of a show, with all these drivers in here and getting everybody situated. Like to thank my teammates. I believe a lot of us made it in this playoff, so that's cool. Rodney for painting up my Mountain Dew car. It's one of my favorite ones. I love the old throwback Mountain Dew car. And just, that's about it really. And we'll see you in the playoffs.
Well, that's Ken Roberts, second place here tonight. He locks himself into the postseason through points. Good, consistent regular season. Looking to carry that over into the final 5 races in the chase. Congratulations once again, and best of luck in the first playoff race next week.
Thanks, guys. You guys have a good one.
And Robert's going to finish runner-up here tonight, but we're going to now go down to victory lane and dial up the first and only multi-time winner so far here in season 68. Let's get a hold of Tim Nofsker. Hey, Tim, it's the guys up here in the booth. You got a copy?
I do. How you guys doing?
Doing good. I think we're going to have to call you the streak breaker. We had 9 different winners in the first 9 races coming into tonight, but a bookend regular season. You take the first checkered flag and the last checkered flag of the regular season. Some valuable bonus points going into the reformatted playoffs and some really important momentum, I think, as well. You all but dominated the second half of this race, but you had them double wide and in several occasions on that final 5-lap shootout, 3 wide in the rearview mirror. Just how nervous were you and just how many eyes were in the windshield as opposed to the rearview mirror?
Yeah, I don't even know if I looked forward at all that last lap. I saw, Josh, he made a move. I didn't really want to block him, but I moved him out a bit. If he would have had some help behind him, I think he could have won that race. But I saw the inside line stay for him, so I went back down there. And then Ken had a good run on me coming to the tri-oval, and I was just able to hold him off.
we
The
talked
fact
about
that you beat me in the bracket challenge, I tried. Just letting you know. I
No,
tried.
that's just gravy on top.
I was fourth, okay? If you had just slipped up just a little bit.
Then we talk about just how important every point is in this type of a series, this type of race format, just this type of style of racing with everybody in close proximity to each other for 66 laps every single Thursday night. Not only with this victory do you garner an extra 3 bonus points for this victory, but you also move up a couple of spots in the standings from 5th to 3rd, which actually translates after the reformat of 6 extra points with your seating in the standings. I asked the other 2 drivers this same scenario with the fact that this is an entirely new playoff system than we've had in seasons past. Before, we used to have just the 1 race finale, then we had the 2 race finale with elimination races along the way. Now there's none of that. No elimination races whatsoever. No win and you advance. It's 5 races. Whoever has the most points at the end of those 5 races wins the championship. With these 9 bonus points you were able to garnish here tonight, outside of your points positioning and the race win, how much does that do in terms of helping you momentum-wise and also being able to have a bit of a cushion over the rest of the competition, which is about doubles in size with at least 16 drivers we know now being in this season's chase?
Yeah, it's actually going to be a pretty large group going into the chase. I felt like going in that it was important to try to stay in the top 5 in points. I think the guys that are on the back end of the points are going to really have to have some phenomenal races to make a run at it. Consistency is the key. And so that's more of a focus in this type of format where you have to be consistent in order to be successful. So, you look at a guy like Joe DeSpirito. I mean, he's had great consistency this season. He's been up front a lot. So, that if you want to use a roadmap to success, I mean, everything he did this season definitely helped him. So, you do the same thing in the playoffs, and
regular season, some great momentum for you going forward. We wish you luck with that, but we'll let you get back to your celebrating in Victory Lane here in a moment. Before we do, though, we're going to turn things over to you for Victory Lane. Thank you, sponsors and shout-outs.
Yeah, I'd like to throw a thank you out to Josh Metallic and Ken Roberts, Kelly Causey. I ran with those guys tonight quite a bit, and, they're just top-notch racers. I mean, you don't have to be afraid of them washing out or taking you out. So it was a lot of fun racing with those guys. I got to give a thanks to Josh again and Rodney and Brian Schilling. They helped out with the admin stuff. So it's great to be a part of that team. And then give a thank you to Prime, Jeremy Jeffries, Jason Shack, a lot of the guys that do a lot of the background work around here. Without those guys, we couldn't even have a place to race. So really appreciate everything they do. And thank you to you guys for doing such a great job every week.
Well, we appreciate it, Tim, and congratulations on picking up the 2nd victory of the season, going into the playoffs as the only multi-time winner during the season's 68 regular season. Again, best of luck trying to carry this momentum into the chase starting next week.
All right. Thanks again, guys.
That's Tim Knopfsker, who got the season started off with a victory, ends the regular season with a victory, and we know that he will be one of the drivers that will battle for the championship. We've gotten the preliminary points calculated. Again, tremendous shout out to Jeremy Jeffries, RTG, for making sure that we at least have a bit of an idea going forward from race to race, especially when we're here in the playoffs, of who's in, who's out, who's positioned where. This is the current scenario. There are going to be, we know, at least 17 drivers that will be in this season's playoffs, potentially 18, and I'll explain why in just a moment. But the drivers that were top 16 in points, and yes, this includes some drivers that have gone to victory lane this season, Joe DeSpirito will win the regular season championship, 30 points over Josh Metallic. Nofsker was able to jump up to third. Mark Paglia fourth. Grant Wesley dropped to fifth. Michael Norman sixth. Ken Roberts, after the runner-up, finished seventh. Brian Schilling in eighth. Craig Hagley ninth. Greg Lovell will be 10th. Chuck McClure has a shot for the three-peat as he was 11th in the regular season's final point standings. Jeremy Jeffries in 12th. Ulysses Sandoval dropped to 13th. Bob Seminara up to 14th. Rodney Sullins in 15th. And Denny Carroll dropped to 16th position. He will not have to rely on a wild card spot with his win. He will get the final spot. However, he is tied with 268 points with Greg Palmer. We've seen tie scenarios before where usually the two drivers that are tied both advance. So there is the possibility next week you could hear Greg Palmer listed as one of the championship hopefuls. The other driver that is officially locked in that we know for certain will get in through a wild card spot will be Kelly Causey. He came into tonight 20th in points. He will end the night 20th in points. His victory will garner him a wild card position. The only driver that previously won this season that will not get a wild card spot, Donnie Garrett, didn't get the finish he was looking for tonight, only moved from 29th to 28th at the end of this regular season. So unfortunately, his win will not advance him into the hunt for this season's title. But at least 17 that we know of, Kyle, maybe 18. And I feel like I say this every regular season finale. You look down this list, it doesn't matter how consistent or inconsistent this regular season has been. You can make a clear-cut case for every single one of these guys to be the champion at the end of these 5 races. Yeah,
I mean, everybody's done a great job to make it into the playoffs. And, luckily for them, like we've mentioned, a lot during the season, change in format. It's no longer an elimination format. Everybody has a chance to win it, in the 5 races. So I'm sure that's a big sigh of relief for everybody that made it. And honestly, why doesn't it surprise me that we have a tie? It seems like we always do, either at the initial cutoff for the playoffs or during one of the rounds of the playoffs in the past. It seems like we always have 1 or 2 ties throughout there. And sure enough, we have another one here this season to start the playoffs.
Yep. I mean, at least this time we know that we're not having rounds, so we won't have ties for the elimination races. But to that end, just looking at the statistics over the course of these 10 regular season races, I see 7 drivers that have advanced into the playoffs that they've managed to finish in the top 10 in at least half of those races. But it has been so up and down for every single driver. Yes, some have been able to be a little bit more consistent than others, but there's not necessarily statistically been a clear favorite in terms of being consistent over the course of these 10 races. Now we got to cover half of those races again. There's no elimination races. It's all down to consistency. How difficult is that going to be really for all of these drivers just based on how inconsistent just about everybody's regular season has been?
Very.
And I think Michael said it best right there. One word. I mean, we all know how difficult it is in super speedway racing to put up any form of consistency. I mean, we saw it with Brian Schilling a few seasons back where he scored a top 10 finish in every single regular season race. But man, to be able to pull something off like that off in a super speedway series, very, very hard to do.
Yeah, I feel that we heard earlier tonight from Richard Martin, who finished third. Unfortunately, he did not advance, but I feel someone's going to have to pull off a Richard Martin-esque chase. I go back to his championship season. I believe it was the first season that they implemented the 6-race playoffs with the 2 elimination races. He ended up winning the championship, didn't win a single race, won the entire thing on consistency. I feel like someone's going to have to channel that here this season if they're going to come out with the championship trophy at the end of these upcoming 5 weeks. But we finally had the table set. We now know, for the most part, the drivers that will battle for the championship. Obviously, based off of the points seeding, is going to determine what driver scenarios are going to look like heading into next week. How far behind are they going to be from the points leader? More than likely, that number 1 seed will be Joe DeSpirito. He'll be the benchmark. We're going to have to wait and see how it all plays out. Again, next week, you're going to have Blaine Donlin, Rod West, and Jack Mitchell in the booth. Kyle and I'll be back to cover the second race of the playoffs going forward to the end of the season. But looking forward to seeing what these drivers have in store for us next week as the championship now hangs in the balance. It's been an incredible 10 races leading up here in the regular season. We thank you for joining us during the entirety of this regular season. We now get set for the playoffs. Be sure to join us next Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here, the simulcast with FRN and Tarnation TV. But for Blaine Donlin, Kyle Matthews, I'm Seth Cole. Thanks for spending your Thursday evening with us, folks. You've been watching another broadcast courtesy of the Flatout Racing Network and Tarnation TV.